So let us get into the session, the morning session, which is setting the stage, where our first topic is going to be building a culture of research integrity in Nigerian academic and research institutions. And we have our speaker who is online. She is Morenike Folayan, who is a professor of pediatric dentistry at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife in Osun State, Nigeria. She holds a master's in business administration and another master's in education administration and leadership, as well as a PhD. She also holds the fellowship of West African College of Surgeons. She belongs to various professional organizations, has bagged several travel scholarships, and has been a beneficiary of various national and international research and project grants. She has served in various capacities in multiple national and international associations, committees, and projects, and as a peer reviewer for multiple high-impact health-related journals. She is a member of multiple research groups, has authored and edited more than 15 books and book chapters, and has over 300 journal publications. She has an excellent track record of working with the community, for the community, to enhance the voices of stigmatized and vulnerable populations. She is a fellow of the Academy of Science in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome to the platform of the EXCEL-RITE conference, Professor Morenike Folayan. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with you online. I would have loved to be there very much physically. I was there throughout the conference yesterday, listening to everybody and of course taking part in the big jokes. Wherever Professor Tomari is, it's a place to be. It's a big joke on serious matters, you know. And thanks for every other person that waited till the end. It was indeed a pleasure seeing old friends and everyone. So today I'll be going very briefly to the stop, building a culture of research integrity in Nigerian academia and research institutions. I want to extend my appreciation through the Vice Chancellor's appreciation for making it a part of this. As you do know, I represent, as well as the Chairman, Central Office of Research, Professor Adejigbe, who currently is the new Vice Chancellor of the University of Medical Sciences, Ondo, taking over from another IFE person who was Professor Adeshegun Fatusi, who performed meritoriously. So having us here from IFE, my Vice Chancellor is very proud and extends the university's gratitude and open doors for future partnership as this goes forward. For the next 1 hour thereabout, I want to leave a lot of space for discussion. I'll be showing you the outline, but first, just to note that when we're talking about research integrity, it's about fighting for the soul of research. And it's not enough just to fight, it's a battle that must be won. If we heard a lot about what this means, and we have to win it, but we have to win it one person at a time, and it is very possible. I will be using this outline to discuss this morning. As the compound noted, today is about a lot of practicals. Yesterday was setting the stage. And so I'll start by defining research integrity. I know you've heard it before, but throughout this conference, we're going to hear it over and over. Once again, we're going to battle for the soul of research. And so we have to repeat it until it sinks in a way that makes impact. I would highlight why research matters, but I'm going to spend a lot more time on the 4 pillars of research integrity. And what I'm going to do with those 4 pillars is that after having highlighted the 4 pillars, I'm going to use case studies to study each one. Why do I want to use case studies? I want to use case studies because what we have seen when we talk about research integrity, it has to be driven by individuals. You can write policies, you can do 1,000,001 things, and I look forward to our current NREC chair, Professor Adegbola, putting in place systems and structures in a way that is sustainable, because I heard him over and over saying what exists right now is not sustainable. Completely agree with him. But what we have done so far in this country has been by individuals. And it's individuals who has made research integrity the soul of their piece of work. Can't ignore that. To also acknowledge that when we say research integrity is the soul of academia, I think it was exemplified in Nigeria by INEC. When INEC chose professors to head every state INEC program, electoral process, because academia is synonymous with integrity. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a car. It wasn't to build a pause, because election is integrity, and they recognized where to find integrity. They know that to find integrity, you have to look for it in the academia. So once integrity is lost in the academia, then we have a problem. So I think somewhere, if you hear my words, I want to stop us at this time to acknowledge the people who have worked hard to put research about ethics forward in this country, despite the absence of structures per se. I start by acknowledging Professor Femi Soyinka, late. I thank Professor Falusi, through whose eyes I became part of this movement. I recognize the father of ethics in Nigeria today, not the founding father, but the father of ethics today, Professor Clement Adepomo, with all due respect. It is the foundation is laid that we are all enjoying up to this moment. And of course, the three musketeers, myself, Oliver, and Kieso, there are two. I'm the third musketeer. We've been at this forever. And I want to thank you for continuing to being at this. Of course, I must recognize Uncle Demo, Professor Adejumo, Professor Gundiran, Aminu, and Ado. We are all the team. There's nowhere in this country we haven't gone past. I remember when we went to Zamfara. I never told anybody I was going to Zamfara when I was going there. But we have, in tears and hardship, move the pain a little. And of course, I must recognize Benson, the Bioethics Society of Nigeria, and everybody on it, including the past president, Professor Umora, as well as the current president, and Professor Adejumo. And of course, I celebrate IGN. I celebrate you for what you're doing and this beautiful conference, knowing that it's also part of the process of moving the hand of the clock a little bit forward. I'll be talking about current challenges very briefly and how to mitigate them, and then call for action. Once again, research integrity matters. This is my quote, and I said, teaching researchers and academic research integrity is synonymous to teaching the Pope how to tell the truth. I mean, the Pope is synonymous to truth. Integrity is synonymous to researchers. Integrity, not just research. You cannot have research integrity and have another integrity. You can't have research integrity and then be corrupt. You can't have research integrity. There's no split image of a researcher. I'm sure the psychologists will understand that research is integrity. And so getting us to the point of teaching it is because you just have to know it. There's no alternative. And I know that when any member of the community, and I keep teaching people that researchers is an elite community. It's a special community. It's invested with a lot of respect. But beyond that, even as a country, you're invested in the process of national development. It was beautiful listening to some presenters yesterday. China is what it is today. US is what it is today because of research. And I tell people, if Nigeria is not doing well, it's because we as researchers have failed the system. It's not anything to do with Jagaban or T-Pain. It's because we as researchers. So when researchers have problems and they keep grumbling, oh, the country is not doing well, you're just indicting yourself. See, I mean, China, before the eyes of many of us, have grown from nothingness to something. It's because the researchers invested and did not want sitting on complaining. When you have a problem, it is food for researchers to solve. Researchers feed on problems. So if this country has problems, it's food for research. And so if the country continues to have problems that remains unsolved, it's not the presidency's issue. It's you researchers failing in your responsibility. And if in that responsibility, we continue to, invest in research misconduct, it's a lot of pain. And I tell you, for those of us in the research community, when there's an indictment of one of us with research misconduct, It's an indictment of us all. So everyone, I'm going to therefore spend a lot of time talking about building the competency of every one of us. Because once I learned we're 80 people on the ground, and I can see that we're up to 74 online right now. If all of us can do something, if all of us can do something like I have listed, every one of us is doing, we would once again move and the country 1 mile forward. At this point in time, I also want to celebrate Professor Okushola, the current Vice Chancellor of Lagos. I remember in the early days, there was no ethics committee. There was no ethics committee in Unilag. When she wanted to start her international research, she had to invest in that process to set up ethics committee in Unilag, and it has grown thanks to KSO, who has also grown on it. And now they have, I think, an institute that is looking at ethics in Unilag. So we all can do something. And if collectively 120 of us or more, 150 of us here do something, definitely the country continues to move forward. So how do we define research integrity? I have raised 8 points, the lens through which I would hope we can look at research integrity. First is that is the pursuit of truth. Is seeking the truth, even when it is inconvenient or complex. And that's what research is. Research is about seeking the truth. And so when it is not about you, there is an unknown in the space there. There's an unknown. And what you're doing is answering an unknown that enables the next person to answer the unknown until we get the truth. And once we get the truth, then we move on to something else. Okay, so there's a truth out there that we're seeking to know. And we have had major breakthroughs by being committed to the truth, by appreciating its inconveniencing, its complex, but sticking to the truth. Okay, it's a mirror of the mind, reflecting the pursuit of honesty with humility, and also appreciating that we make things visible. It's a covenant with the society. It's a silent promise that knowledge will be built not for vanity, but for the collective good. It's not about you amassing manuscripts. It's not about you amassing grants. Those things come secondary. The primary goal when we're looking for research integrity is to make the society better. If that is a pursuit, why are you going to be telling lies? You start to tell lies, you start to do research misconduct, you fabricate. One's self is first. Once it's about me and my acquisition, then this other part becomes a major thing. Of course, I do appreciate it's not as simple as that, but at least once the foundation is right, the ability to build on research integrity becomes a lot easier. It's a discipline of doubt. It honors questioning, it welcomes it, it's carefully skeptical, and it has the courage to admit what we do not know. I think for me, the most powerful part of the research is the limitation. Choosing to acknowledge that even this I've done, there's a limit to how you can use it, and there's a limit to what I've done, and therefore please take note of this as a gap. That's powerful, and you must acknowledge it's self-power to be able to reflect on self and critique self for the good of others. Okay, it's the act of accountability. It demands the ownership of the method, results, implication, and knowing that truth is aimed and not given. I did hear a lot about, I think Oliver was discussing about authorship yesterday, and this is the kind of thing we're talking about. It's the soul of scholarship, the invisible thread connecting generations of thinker and preserving wisdom through honesty and rigor. I hope somebody is going to spend time on mentorship and here, because this is also part of research integrity building a culture. Building a culture. Culture, when you talk about culture, you're talking about a collective. So we say a collective in Nigeria has integrity. I'm sure we know we don't have that. We don't have that acknowledgement right now in the international space, but we can get there. We can get there. And it's a choice to resist corruption, to resist shortcuts. The sad thing is that it sadly is a nature known for many Nigerians. I was in Amsterdam about a few years ago, and a friend of mine who is in sports said he came across this white who wouldn't allow his son to move with Nigerians, but he was a Nigerian. and it was an exception. He said, no, you know what about Nigerians? Telling lies is a second nature. They just tell lies for lies' sake. They just tell lies. Doesn't want to sort, to be part of that culture. So if you have that culture to just tell lies with research, it is easy. And I guess that is why we must teach research integrity. We have to denature that Nigerianness from us to wear a new cloak of research that makes you excel in academia, sadly so. I wrote this poem, I generated this poem actually from AI about what it means. That research integrity is the heart of honest discovery. In the quest for knowledge, truth must guide. Through storms of doubt with steady stride. A spark of trust, a sacred flame. Research with honor builds its name. Without integrity, walls fall apart. But with it, science wins the heart. The nation's dream, the people's voice, from strength and truth, the clearest choice. So let's each find bold and free, be built on trust and honesty. So let me go into the heart of the matter after telling my many stories. Why integrity matters. It ensures society can trust the knowledge produced by scholars. I recall when I was in Brown's University, I met, the family of a colleague. And the first thing, what's most recent in research? The society thrives on research. They look for it, they want to find, and therefore support it. So it's not a thing to be taken trivially. And for those in academia, it's time to move away from looking at research as an issue for promotion and only. No, I tell people when I teach, go look at the statutes that established research institutions and postgraduate colleges in Nigeria. It's about nation building. So the government invested in you, supplemented your school fees. It's not about you. Well, I agree that our salary is poor. It's about you being invested in nation building. Go check the statutes. And so if nation building isn't happening, we're disappointing the society. It's we that drives. And once again, check all nations. Malaysia. We talk about Malaysia coming here to take oil, palm kernel, and turning their nation into something. And now the world is looking at using oil to fuel flights, and knowing that it actually started in Biafra war in Nigeria. But it's research, it's the academia that moves that. We find answers to questions even for the industry. So that is what research is. It's not about promotion. It's not about acquiring paper. No. Once we change that orientation, things will change. It's about safeguarding the credibility of the academic world. It's a show of respect, not only to your research colleagues, but also to the participants, to their data, to the community. It genuinely fuels discovery, innovation, and progress. And it strengthens the credibility of academia and research institution. If you do well, you can't be poor in the academy. You can't, because you'll be sought after. Okay? So those are the 4 pillars: data management, proper authorship and credit, peer review ethics, and conflict of interest. And I'm going to take them one by one, using case studies to look at that. So what is data management? I'll look at 8 points. It's about accuracy. Data is recorded, analyzed, and reported exactly as observed. No fabrication, no manipulation. This is not you getting a p-value of 0.0051 because you want it to be statistically significant. You forget the 1, you choose to forget the 1 and present something to be statistically significant, or alter it 0.0049 because it's the same. No, it's the same. No, it's about explicit, precise presentation of data, no fabrication or manipulation. It's about transparency. I heard, and thanks to Dr. Ike yesterday, reiterated it forever. When there's nothing documented, it doesn't exist. So there's clear documentation of data collection processes, the steps, the analysis process, so that others understand it and can replicate it. It's about confidentiality, where you protect sensitive information. Research is trust. Somebody gives you their data. Do you realize that when they give you data, they probably are giving you data they've never given somebody in their life? So you can't breach that trust. You find out in this country that you even ask for something like age, they can't tell you because they don't know what will happen to it. Okay. So you must learn to be confidential with information. I'll give two examples. I remember very well, I'm sure it's very familiar. You go into somebody's office and you just see all the papers all littering the table, littering everywhere. And you're wondering, what's this? I'll give you two examples. I remember I was working with a colleague and I had to handle the data. My niece's name was in the data and I was there looking at my niece's information, you know. So imagine if it was a terrible incident, and I'll tell you a case of a terrible incident that you find, not handling people's data confidentially. It's a big deal. I remember there was a story, and I'm sure KSO will remember the story, where there was a student who was looking through data that was not anonymized. And in that data, he found the record of his grandfather was an homosexual. That disrupted this guy. It disorientated him. He dropped out of school. It was that bad. Confidential information. You cannot just keep research records anywhere or handled by an untrained person. Or, you see papers. I'm sure some of you have seen research papers being used for granite, sales of granite and roasted plantain. These are horrible stories. It shouldn't happen. If you want to dispose of those papers, you shred them. You shred them. They must go to shredders before they go into the bin. And proper storage. It goes hand in hand with confidentiality. It's also about responsible sharing. Please know that open sharing is valid, no matter what you say, the arguments back and forth, or you must share your data so that others can use it and they can verify what you've done by the open access to your data. Ownership and attribution matters. Intellectual property rights must be respected. People that contribute to your manuscript must be respected and acknowledged. I'm sure somebody's going to spend time talking about authorship. And if it is not authorship level, there's a place for acknowledgement for people doing things with you. I remember my colleague, Biola Adeni, she does a lot of official works for me. Many times I've forgotten, but it must be in that acknowledgement that she did the visuals. Somebody's site, acknowledge them. And compliance, please choose. Please choose to comply with institutional, national, and international data regarding data protection and sharing. Please choose. It's a choice. Many times I see us arguing against rules and regulation, justifying why it cannot work. Please, when we're talking about research integrity, you must justify why it must work. And you must make it work. This is not the place for excuses. You can sit here and tell excuses. Funds had never been enough. Go and ask them in China, funds is not enough. Ask them in America, funds is not enough. Funds can never be enough. But the little you have, make the best of it. I argue the funds is not the bedrock of research integrity. It is not. It is not. It is you choosing to do what is right. If you have 10 naira, do research of 10 naira. If you have 100 naira, do research of 100 naira with integrity. Why are you looking for 1 million naira when you have not done 100 naira? Oliver is here. We run a project, Oral Health Initiative. You know that we give people 100,000 naira, and tomorrow they are not accounted for 100,000 naira. We give grants of 100,000 naira. Till tomorrow, they've not accounted for it. We give grants of 250,000. Till tomorrow, they've not accounted for it. So why are you looking for 1 million when you can't even account for 100,000? That's all research integrity is about. Know what you can do with the little you have. When you have a history of doing well with the little you have, you will get more. Other countries around the world, it's by research grant that institutions are built. You hear Harvard, you hear John Hopkins. It's research grants that is holding them. It's not government subvention. The president is going around looking for foundations to give money to the institutions. It's not the government. So why are you complaining? China was worse than us. We can grow this nation to be great. It's not money. Money is not the foundation for research integrity. It is you upholding ethics and making sure that integrity is addressed throughout the life cycle, from conceptualization to reporting to storage and to sharing and archiving. So let's go through the case study briefly. So we have this case of somebody doing a project on Green Earth Climate Project. That's Dr. Aminu and our team launched the Green Earth Climate Project to study temperature changes in rural farming communities. And they were determined to uphold the highest standard of research integrity. First, in terms of accuracy, the field workers were trained to record the temperature reading exactly as measured without rounding or estimates. Precision. And when unexpected values appear, they will carefully flag it and double check rather than eliminate outliers. I remember the second to the last speaker talking about this. You must explain before you just eliminate outliers. That's not how to handle data. Okay? That's accuracy. In terms of transparency, every data method, from the thermometer to the exact time and the condition, were documented in a detailed protocol manual. The last speaker yesterday talked about this when they talked about monitoring and checking for those details. These documents are made publicly available for any report, any project that wants to replicate the study. In terms of confidentiality, because the data collected and farmers' household information, all personal identifiers were replaced with unique codes. So you have a book where you can link the name with the unique code, but anything publicly accessible has unique codes. So access to the raw personal data were restricted also onto authorized team members that were trained, okay, and they follow strict ethical approvals. Nobody goes to the field. None of Dr. Amina's research participants went to the field before ethics clearance. None. You don't go to the field before you've collected the ethics clearance. And we'll talk about, I don't think I am the one talking, but we will talk about what this means. Institutional research ethics clearance. The ethics committee are very important because they're the unblinded eye, they're the the ones without interest. They don't have invested interest. So they are looking to your protocol with the eye for safety, ethical integrity, and scientific validity of your study. The ethics committee in Nigeria does both. They look for scientific integrity, ensuring that everything you do is using the right method and properly justified. And they ensure ethical integrity, that nobody is exploited or unduly chanced. Okay? And then Dr. Amina and her team also ensured proper storage. All documents were stored in encrypted servers with daily backup. Physical notebooks were kept in locked documents, and a secure data archive was established to ensure that the information will be preserved long after the project ends. Please know that in Nigeria, you're expected to preserve your data, your research data, for 10 years. So anybody can come back within 10 years to ask about that data. You don't show your data away. And then in terms of responsible research sharing, some data was shared, were kept in the repository. Many of us have university repository, and they asked us to deposit our research, and we keep fighting. It's my money I use. If the institution didn't employ you, do you have a name? Do you have a caliber to stand and be saying you're a professor or doctor? Is they employed you? So go and deposit your research in the university repository. And stop making Nigerian university look as if we are not producing anything when we are even world ranking. Ensure consent forms are clearly stated, shared, and ensure patients' privacy and ethical obligation are respectively honored. Well, the green, in terms of ownership and attribution, the Green Earth team properly cites every external data set, acknowledges collections, acknowledges publications, and make it clear that the project institution is not that of an individual, and they own, and whoever it is that owns the primary data. They comply with university policies, they comply with national regulations on environmental and human research, and every research ethics committee audit, they welcome it. Remember the last speaker yesterday? Audits are supposed to be welcomed, okay? And I'm sure Oliver can speak to that. He does this a lot around the world through the TDR project. And they maintained integrity throughout the life cycle, planning, and committed to rigor and standards. Okay. And even when the reviewer sent the manuscript back to them and said, review to make it simpler, they chose not to alter data in the name of clarity. They chose to do what is right. And that's what we're talking about. Integrity, maintain, stay. Don't because, oh, I want this paper to be accepted, then change things. No, adhere to what is right and they respect, and you get published. If not with that journal, you get published elsewhere. So let's look at the second pillar, proper authorship and credit. This discussion started yesterday. Proper authorship and credit, there's the CICJME guidelines. Please read it. You must be familiar with it. It's about honest attribution. Only individuals who make substantial contribution should be listed as author. There's no place for gift and ghost authorship. If somebody has a right to be acknowledged as author, please make the place. I remember I had a presentation a few weeks ago where I showed a case in Nigeria where there were 3 authors, but the study was done in Nigeria and Indonesia, extensive study, quasi-experimental study. And nobody was listed from Nigeria and Indonesia, but there were 3 authors. And between the Nigerian and Indonesia colleagues, they collected data from over 4,000 individual students that they followed up for 24 weeks. But that was a deprivation of authorship. And then you talk about research not being produced from low middle income countries. So you must honestly attribute for people. Don't as a supervisor take away one of the people that are poorly acknowledge that your lab, the people that work in the lab with you must really acknowledge them if they've made substantial contribution to be authors, and you must groom them to be authors. Another thing that I think we learned yesterday from Dr. The first speaker who was representative of Professor Aliyu, my sister from NIMA, she talked about, cases where people are not acknowledged for their authorship. Okay, so there must be honest attribution and clear contributions. Authorship must reflect intellectual property. Designing the study, analyzing and writing significant parts of the study. Many journals now ask you to write the level of contribution of authors. The rules must be transparent and declaration must be agreed upon. We talked about that yesterday. And once again, avoid gift authorship, which is, oh, my friend, come and join me. Or ghost authorship, where people do contribute and then you fail to acknowledge them, maybe because they're your juniors, okay? Respect for order. The sequence of authorship must show true representation of what they do. You don't put a person as first author when the person did not contribute significantly, okay? So the sequence of authorship must be based on their level of contribution. Every listed author should also take responsibility to at least do some part of the work. And acknowledgement of non-authors is very important. People that do well to make the paper better, acknowledge them. And please, for authorship, once again, discuss this very early and upfront. One of the things I think I've dealt with is, you have a research project and then you have your manuscript. Your research project is your research project. The manuscript is another thing. You might find people that are not in the project being part of the manuscript, people who are in the manuscript not being part of the project. Manuscript is a different thing in itself. It's an entire new ballgame. So please deal with it properly. I'm sure Oliver here, that's the story I know, can tell you how on this project, they had defined authorship well in advance before work started. Please ask him to stand up and share with you how they've done it successfully at NIMA. And let's go through this case study briefly. The multidisciplinary team from 3 universities collaborated on a project known as the Horizon Project to study the impact of climate change on urban health. Well, the team included senior professors, postdocs, and graduate students. As the project neared publication, tension now started to arise over authorship. When we talk about honest attribution, only 5 team members actually contributed substantially to the design of the study, collecting and analyzing the data, and drafting the manuscript. However, a senior professor who provided funding access or no intellectual input expects to be listed as an author. In terms of clear contribution, some team members who performed minor administrative support wanted authorship credit, even though they did not engage in intellectual work. And then in terms of transparency and roles at a group meeting, it became clear that there was no early agreement about who did what. Now disagreements about contributions made listing authors difficult. I recall yesterday this was discussed about early agreement about roles and responsibility. Please note, when we're talking about avoidance of gift and ghost authorship, that adding that senior professor because he provided funding answers but had not intellectual input, will constitute a gift authorship, while ignoring the junior researchers assistant who drafted large parts of the method section is ghost authorship. In terms of respect for others, there was a disagreement at that who should be the first author. The postdoc who led the data analysis or the graduate student who wrote the first draft, who should actually be the first author? Please note that the first authorship is left to the person who did the major intellectual work. Okay. So in case of accountability, some proposed adding names for political reasons. We do that. But concerns were raised. Would everyone listed genuinely stand behind the entire work? What I ask is that if tomorrow this work comes up and they say we are going to jail for this work that we did, how many of you will say, no, I don't know anything about this work, or they only invited me? The people that will say that, now remove them. They're not part of the work. It's also very important to acknowledge the non to several individuals who assisted with data collection but had no role in the analysis or writing or can't be acknowledged. They don't have to be authors. And please, the team realized that they should have discussed authorship expectation early on. Once again, we talk about authorship before it all starts. Last minute discussion will always cause unnecessary tension. So for this project, how did they resolve it? They decided to align with ethical research guidelines. Only contributors who meet substantial intellectual input should be author. Each author's roles should be clearly described in the manuscript. And many journals now have that place where you describe the rules. Those who supported the project in non-substantial ways should be acknowledged. And the order of authorship was determined based on actual contributions agreed upon collectively, and all authors accepted accountability for their part and the integrity of their work. I would assume that at the end of the session, people will bring up many cases about their supervisor and how they stole their work. Old sins have passed away. Please, now everything has become new. If you need to deal with the old sins, deal with it. But at least you now know what it should be. Going forward, do the right thing. And if there's any old thing that needs to be resolved, please resolve it appropriately. Institutions should have ways of resolving. And if there's no way, look for ad hoc means of resolving anything that is of concern with you for authorship. But these are the rules, and we're expecting when we talk about research integrity, we can adhere to these rules. The third pillar is about peer review ethics. And there are 4 things to think about. Confidentiality. Please note that if you have any manuscript to review, the information must be confidential. You cannot copy, you cannot share, you cannot discuss without permission. You can't. Okay? And evaluate the manuscript fairly, focusing only on the merit of the work and forgetting personal bias. I'm sure KSO is there. We teach about constructive feedback. Constructive feedback is a non-judgmental way of ensuring objectivity in the review. If you have to review anything, please use the research guidelines. There's a research guideline for every form of research. Just type in the Equator website, go to the Equator website or chat research guideline. There's a guideline for every research. Use that to objectively assess every manuscript. It's not about personal feelings. Follow it objectively and give constructive feedback, honest, respectful critique that guides the author to improve their work, not discourage them. No, don't you know? I thought your title is professor. Why are you writing as if you are not an undergraduate student? Please, that is judgmental. Focus. This piece of your work noted this. However, did you consider this other reflective part? This person will be happy. And be transparent and fair. Clear criteria. Avoid favoritism. If you have a conflict of interest, if you know the author, don't review the manuscript. Don't discriminate. Okay, don't suppress ideas. Share your idea freely. I remember once when a manuscript was written and somebody, the editor, the peer reviewer gave me comments. So I incorporated that comment into my, my revised manuscript. When you revise, now say, I'm using this idea. Be quick, I just removed it. That is what you're supposed to do as peer reviewer. Share your ideas for me so as to make it. But, you can see his bias. It was even about, I wrote to the editor, Abego, it's your reviewer. He's a biased person, but let me to manage this process. So if you are a peer reviewer, it's about helping to improve that manuscript, because this is about information to the public for use for the societal good. Okay, it's not about you. There's no, there's no issue here. Conflict of interest, once again, if you have a conflict, do not handle it. Disclose it or discuss it with the editor, and then they can manage it. There are times that they might have to, manage conflict, but it must be declared. Please review timely. Don't agree to review a manuscript and 3 months they're still chasing you. 2 weeks. If you don't have time, just turn it down immediately. There's always somebody else to do it. And respect the intellectual property. Don't use the idea of a manuscript until it has been published. This is the work I'm doing, leave the idea there. When it's published, then you can properly acknowledge and take responsibility for the integrity of the review. Don't do superfluous review. I just came in from Kenya where I was discussing manuscript writing, and then some scholars were saying, but there are published manuscript that says this and this. I said, it is not the problem of the published manuscript, it's the problem of the peer reviewers. When peer reviewers do bad quality review, it will be published, but it's bad. If you can't review, I think it was Dr. Mafe yesterday that was talking about a review. When they said it was okay, and then he read the whole thing and it was full of errors. I can tell you how many manuscripts I've seen like that, and I wonder, how did this person say it is okay? It makes the editor now start to read, and then you are starting all over. If you don't have time, leave it. And if you didn't review properly, don't say you reviewed. Just leave it, okay? It affects the work, the quality of work that comes out. So let's quickly go through. Okay, study of Dr. Mensah. Dr. Mensah is not you. This is another Mensah. Okay. All right. So Dr. Mensah is an experienced researcher who was invited to peer review manuscripts submitted to a leading journal. And I'm sure it's the journal of my faculty, my College of Health Sciences. Please submit to our journal. It's a top journal. It has prospecto. It's going to be Q1. I'm enjoining all of us also to please share manuscripts with journals published in Africa. We do need to move to Q1 levels. We do need our voices out there. So yeah, there are journals, good journals in Africa. Journal of Public Health Initiative by African Citizens one. There's one coming up from Society for AIDS in Africa. I think there's one from NIMA, okay? I don't know. I think the one from Unilag is dead already. It was really good, but then I don't know what's happening here. The one in my faculty is good, okay? So, Dr. Mensah submitted to the journal in my faculty. The paper explored novel approach to vaccine delivery, a topic close to Mensah's own personal research. That manuscript, at first, well, no, sorry, it's not Amina, Dr. Mensah was excited but faced several difficult decisions. First, Dr. Mensah, who in this case is a she, so it's not your Dr. Mensah, had to deal with confidentiality. She understood she must treat the manuscript as a privileged information, even though she was eager to discuss the exciting findings with her lab team. Sorry, I was trying to edit a lot of things. She resisted, knowing it would breach confidentiality. Okay? Yeah, so once again, when you receive a manuscript for peer review, remember confidentiality. You can't talk about the content of the manuscript with your friend. There's a manuscript coming up. No. So Dr. Mensah had to consciously keep the information confidential, not sharing, despite her excitement with the paper. The manuscript was authored by a junior research scientist from a rival institution. So despite their competing background, Mensah focused on the quality of the research. Mensah provided details, respectfully suggesting ways to improve clarity as well as rigor, ensuring our critique encourage the author rather than discourage them. Okay, so your language matters. One of the things I think we as a language normally isn't very resource. They actually feel offended. If we're not conscious of it, we find it's also aggressive. So we must be conscious of it and manage it. I would encourage you to attend one of our trainings one of these days. It's about constructive feedback. And you find how you write in a way that it's objective and encouraging. Okay, also in terms of transparency and fairness, Mensa applies the journal's evaluation criteria and also use standard research guidelines consistently without favoritism. Once you use this evaluation criteria, you are likely to be a lot more objective than subjective. Once again, there are research guidelines accessible for every form of research. Check it on Equator. You will see the list of guidelines and you can use them. She appreciated the author's novel perspective, even though it challenged conventional wisdom in the field. In terms of conflict of interest, please note that men disclosed this to the journal editor and together decided whether to continue with the review or not. In terms of timeliness, although Mensa was very busy, she'd work on the journal process. As a term of review, send in your review within 2 weeks. And there's a hand-up Excel presentation. Is there anything? I can see I have 60 more minutes. Okay, in terms of intellectual rights, the novel techniques did spark new ideas for Mensa. However, she knows that it would be unethical to adapt it until when there's a publication. And in terms of accountability, she made sure she checked her review before she submitted it, ensuring that the feedback was thorough and thoughtful. And any careless or rush review could delay or harm science. Okay, so that's the second. The third pillar is conflict of interest. This must be disclosed. I think we've already alluded to that. Research must openly declare all relationship, financial or personal, fully truthful disclosure, responsible for recognizing and managing conflict and not waiting for others to find them. And disclosure must help because it helps protect research bias. Once you are conflicted, the trust of the outcome is it can be trusted, even though it might be very objective, but you're already introducing bias reflection on the quality of the work you're doing. So when we talk about conflict of interest, we're dealing with fairness, as all contributors and collaborators must disclose equally so that you maintain the field. And then disclosing conflict of interest protects the right of the study participants and also maintains public trust. If there are no institutional guidelines, support the system to make it. When I was the executive director of the Central Office of Research, there were no guidelines. In 1 year, I produced 15 guidelines because the university needed it. It included the AI guideline. I remember people talking about it yesterday. IFE has an AI guideline, and we won the competition by NUC about guidelines, institutional guidelines for AI. We have guidelines for misconduct. I thank Professor Ogundiran, who gave feedback when they came to train the ethics committee in IFE on research integrity. So we have 15 guidelines protecting every aspect of research conduct in IFE, including the research policy, including and data protection. So you can go to the Vice Chancellor and say, I want to lead this process. And they'll welcome it, okay? So if there are policies based on what we've discussing here, initiate it in university. And those policies did not cost anything. We used the system that existed to make it happen. The university has internet, there's the general, university listserv. We sent it there. Send your comments. We sent to the dean. Send your comment. We sent to the association. Send your comments. It didn't cost us so, but we did it, and the whole university was a process. I guess my current chair of the Central Office of Research is planned to disseminate, but our appointment as the new vice chancellor, I'm sure, will disturb that. So it's a process. You can do it, okay? And conflicts also arise at any stage of research. So for integrity, you must continue to self-assess to be sure that nothing is conflicting. Let's quickly look at this. Tomika is a respected public health researcher at Nsukka University and is leading a study on a new vaccine for widespread infection. Our research team at university, part of our income comes from a pharmaceutical company that manufactures this vaccine in the study. Okay, so conflict and match. The time of the project approval, Dr. Odumika did not disclose her consulting relationship with PharmaCure, believing it was minor and not directly related to the study. She reasoned that her scientific methods were rigorous, which it was, and that consulting work would not influence her conclusions. The study result later showed high favorable outcome for the PharmaCure vaccine. What then happened? Which is what happens. So a journalist investigated the vaccine's research funding and uncovered that Odumika's relationship with PharmaCure. This discovery led to public outcry, questioning the objectivity of the research and trustworthiness of the results. And participants who had volunteered at the study betrayed. Well, Nsukka at the university faced reputation damage. I would hesitate, sponge here and say something very important when we talk about research integrity, and I'll give you one example. Research integrity doesn't come lashing back at you the day you do it. It's 10 years, 15 years. That it will come lashing back. Go and look at the history. And you know who finds them? Journalists that are looking for stories. Look at the president of Harvard, the first Black female president of Harvard. She wasn't there for more than 2 weeks. They didn't remind her that she had plagiarized when she was senior researcher, senior lecturer. When she was assistant, even when she was professor, they did it. The day she became president, they told her, look, you are plagiarized. In 2 weeks, she stepped down because it was true. Guys, if you do not leave behind your full trail of research integrity, it is the day that something important comes to your life, at least to have their stories. I am friends to many journalists. I had one very close friend. He says, you know how they feed? When these politicians come in place, they go and look for their dirty story. And that is their blackmail. Because they don't want those dirty stories out. Those politicians keep paying them heavily. That's how they survive. My dear, it is the day you become somebody that they will remember your research integrity. I mean, that's secondary, but please don't even indulge in it because it has a lot of negative impact. I'll tell you one story, but I know my time is running. I like telling stories. I'm 58 years old. I tell stories. So what are the issues here for Dr. Emeka? Transparency. Dr. Emeka failed to declare her financial relationship with Cure, depriving reviewers and participants of final information. No matter how minor it is, you must declare. By minimizing the importance of her consultancy work with PharmaCure, she did not truly disclose a potential conflict of interest. Accountability was an issue. She felt it was not important. You don't do feeling. You follow the rules of the game. I tell people, err on the side of the law. You won't go to jail. Once you say this is what the law says and you are doing it, no matter how people feel, you can't go to jail. But when you start doing favoritism, yeah, no, I'm thinking and I'm not thinking. But when there's no law, of course, that's the problem. Follow guidelines. Our objectivity was compromised. Fairness was affected. Respect for the participant and public was also compromised. The worst is that she put Nsukka at disrepute. And even though Dr. Emeka's consulting contract began after initial disclosure, she failed to update her conflict of interest statement, ignoring the evolution of the natures of conflict. Now let's look at current challenges with Nigeria. There is a pressure, publish or perish culture. In our university, we've moved to publish and flourish. It's the theme for IFE. But even as at that, there's a pressure. You must choose the side you want to belong to. When we talk about research integrity, you must choose the side you belong to. The fact that there's pressure for publish or perish does not mean you do jobs that have that connotes misconduct. There's not room for that. Plagiarism and misconduct. Plagiarism is a big problem. Where people choose, I think it's a culture where you want to just be you. Why would you put somebody's work and not give the person due acknowledgement? What's the problem? It doesn't take away from you now. But the biggest is weak institutional policies. Where policies don't exist, crime thrives. Support your institution to get these policies. Once again, we have over 100 people here, over 150 persons. Where these policies don't exist, stand up. Support your institution and make it happen. I am sure Dr. Mensah will be talking about what they want to do to support universities to going forward. But policies is a big thing. When you don't have policies, crime. There's no crime. There's no crime. And then what happens? And leave another person, and then it becomes witch hunting. We can't do witch hunting. Okay, policies must be in place so that there's no witch hunting. Once there's no policy, if you try to address misconduct, it will be named witch hunting because there'll be others that are off the radar. And then mentoring and training cannot. I once again celebrate for making this happen. I celebrate WAP. I know they've already started put their grants to make it happen. Thank you for what you do. During the program, you learn about the role of research integrity. If a mentor is not, if it knows how to cook up things, the person who will produce will do it 10 times worse. And then we do misconduct. The mentor themselves must maintain integrity. So when we're talking about solutions to this problem, the role of institution is very clear. We must set up policies. We can't overrule it. And I'm sure Dr. Mensah at the end of the third day will be talking about the next steps in this respect. We must set up research integrity offices that must maintain this. Please know that research integrity offices is different from ethics committees. There are two different roles. Ethics committee have their role to play, but research integrity office is important. And training is mandatory. This is the beginning of many other trainings. Trainings must discuss training and retraining. It's not a one-off thing. Ethics, we've been on this ethics things for God knows how many years, and each time we're learning something new. It's all the time, all through time. There must be opportunities for training and mentoring early career researchers. What my talk tomorrow, I'll be talking about it. I have taken a bar. Geez, I'm in the field. The number of students that have started doing research, but they're doing it badly, terribly badly, breaking the rules, poor quality, as if it's the normal. I remember I was training one of them. They wanted to submit manuscript. They were shocked. Not they. One of them, you could see it on his face. That what? He mean he cannot submit an abstract if he has not done a research. He cannot submit an abstract for a research he's thinking of doing. And I looked at him. You want to submit a research? How are you going to write the methodology and results section? You will write results in anticipation of the result. And he kept quiet. That was the end of the training. They've been doing it. It was because of this, I'll tell the stories, that I started a mentorship training program for undergraduate students. It is a normal thing. Poor quality, they will collect 20, just turn it to 100, and they're going on. It's a lot happening. It's terrible, but it's because there still isn't the mentorship culture. Integrate research integrity into what we do, and we need to continue to do workshops and seminars. Every one of you here can organize online seminars regularly. Organize them. It costs really nothing. So institutions have roles to play. They must promote a positive research culture. Culture is about us as a whole. You reward quality over quantity. You recognize ethical mispractice, support collaborative work, and institute integrity education. Even you, as a researcher and academic, you must lead by example. Engage in responsible authorship, promote open and transparent science. And you, every one of you in this workshop, must be a research integrity champion. Once again, we can't win this war if we don't have institutional codes. And we must implement assessment metrics. This doesn't happen. Regular audits and evaluations of what is happening in our institutions. And we can get on board with collaborators and partners. Once again, I celebrate Professor Adipomowo, who got us here because he was getting grants to make the space work. You can be in those offices and do nothing, or you can choose to do something by mobilizing resources from whatever you can get from global partnership and engage civil society and media into this. There was a time we had a lot of funds and we were teaching civil society and media, the media themselves to be gatekeepers. Did we succeed? Yes, we did. Because they themselves are gatekeepers and they will ask about your ethics clearance before you come to do research work. We have multiple examples. I think my final example is about research integrity. I might have to take 1 extra minute, guys. You came in late. So I planned very well for my piece of work, okay, but you came in late. So you're going to give me 5 extra minutes. So you came in 20 minutes after time. I planned my work very well. So I need 5 extra minutes to finish, and I'm on the last step. So we have research integrity. This is Dr. Omotuyi, who's a well-known, well-respected researcher from Midwestern University, and she had Ahmed as her graduate student, devoted to lab, and Omotuyi was as the lab director. Ahmed has spent more than a year on research that Dr. Omotuyi had expected to provide an impressive result. The research simply did not pan out as expected, but Dr. Omotuyi and Ahmed were both extremely disappointed. Dr. Omotuyi had depended on the result from this piece of work so that she could submit an abstract for presentation at the upcoming conference. The student had also, that is, Ahmed, planned his thesis based on the outcome of the research. So Dr. Omotuyi and Ahmed were certain that the hypothesis was right, but they need to figure out what went wrong with the experiment. So the next morning, Dr. Omotuyi came into the office smiling and said, I can't replace your thesis, but I can get you a publication in an important journal. So Dr. Omotuyi handed over to Ahmed materials from a completed experiment that he had never been part of. And the description of the protocol, he doesn't know. The notes, the data, he doesn't know. The drafted conclusion, he doesn't know. But Dr. Omotuyi says, I was planning to write this one for months because I know it will be a good publication, but I haven't had the time. Ahmed, go ahead and do it while I'm trying to figure out what went wrong with the experimentation. All you need to do, said Dr. Omotuyi, is to finish the literature review, write up the manuscript from the data and conclusions that are already there. And from this, Dr. Omotuyi will give you, the student, first authorship. The publication will look great on your CV, said Dr. Omotuyi. So if you were Ahmed, I'm sure Kiesa and Oliver knows the story. We use it in our training all the time. If you were Ahmed, my dear, which will you do? Accept the offer or decline? So what did Ahmed do? One, Ahmed gratefully accepted the manuscript. As a Nigerian, he said, I can't say no to my supervisor. If I say no to my supervisor, that's the end of my thesis. I will never graduate. So Ahmed decided to accept. So Dr. Omotuyi decided to write up the results of our presentation that she was going to make. You know that the result of their research didn't do well, but she wrote the abstract based on the result she was expecting and submitted it. And then Ahmed also collected the abstract of the work that he did not do and decided to finish the manuscript and become first author of a work he had no idea about. Believe me, if they both did this, Ahmed and Omotuyi's choice are ethically and legally prohibited. If Ahmed writes up his materials and takes credit for the experiment as though it is his work, he has plagiarized. Plagiarism is used on the work of another without giving appropriate credit. Well, Dr. Omotuyi cannot ethically give her work or the works of others to John. It's a gift authorship to Ahmed. Ahmed's acceptance of first authorship as a gift ultimately deceives the profession as a whole. Reviewers and readers of the resulting journal will intentionally be led to false conclusion that Ahmed was responsible for a significant portion of that work. If Dr. Omotuyi also goes ahead and writes the result of the abstract based on the result she's expecting rather than what she saw, it's fabrication. Plagiarism and fabrication are examples of misconduct. What was it that he should do? So Ahmed, on the other hand, declined as a second proposition Dr. Omotuyi's offer with a laugh. I'm going to put my name on something when I don't know anything about how the work was done. What if somebody asked me to defend it? Anyway, I've been thinking about the results all weekend, he said, until I repeat the experiment and figure out why I make a mistake, whether there's some sort of calibration error or whether we are seeing true results that we didn't expect. I'm not going to be able to do anything else. So Ahmed turned down Dr. Omotuyi's proposal and decided to do what was right. That refusal is the ethical thing to do. Blaming the work as its own would be an example of plagiarism, which is a type of misconduct. Now I conclude, and I'm sure I'm in time. Now, this session focuses on building a culture. I joked, Dr. Mensa, I joked to Joe Palio. I said, IHVN has a culture of non-timeliness. He said, well, we'll start soon. I said, yes, I know your soon is 45 minutes. IHVN, they don't ever start anything on time. Okay, that's a culture. Do something about this culture. So for us as researchers, I'm talking about the culture of research integrity. Okay? And I think it's about reclaiming an identity. Research is synonymous, it's automatic. But in teaching it, we want to reclaim an identity. Research integrity is a second nature to researchers. And the focus should be about dealing with ethical dilemmas. So it's not about research integrity. It's when you have ethical dilemmas, how do you deal with it? That is the level we should be at. We're not even there, we're still teaching research integrity. Let's reclaim this identity. Where and if lost. And it's not an opportunity. And it's not an option for anyone in academia. It's the way to go. You can't give excuse for research misconduct. You can't find an excuse for research misconduct. You can't justify research misconduct. So the purpose C, it's a second nature. And I know that where corruption tries research integrity would be easily stifled. And I acknowledge that here lies the risk of promoting research integrity in Nigeria. As I end, I want to plug industry research. We're doing the this. I would share with the organizers and ask them to please project. Please join us. It's free. It's virtual, 3 hours a day for 3 days. We have the bioethics conference coming up also. In December, it comes up every second week in December. Please be a part of this. I know IGN will be there. I looked into the listing, and I know you're invited for the speakers. And finally, ICASA is around the corner. Please be a part of ICASA. It's Africa for Africa. This is our conference, and we've successfully managed it for 35 years. So it's time to celebrate in Ghana. On that note, I want to thank you for listening. Over.
I think the applause can be a lot louder, a lot bigger for Professor Morenike Folayan. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.